Thanks for watching my video on how to keep a volleyball scorebook. Well, I'm just going to get right to it. So this is what your first blank page should look like. You always want to start on a page that looks like this, not on a page that looks like this. So as you are on this front page, there's a couple of things that you should fill out before the game starts. So before the game starts, you want to fill out this box right here. So you want to fill out the site. So the site is whatever location, whoever's gym you're playing in. So for our context, we're going to pretend like we're playing at Horizon's Edge. Horizon's Edge. And we are playing on, we're going to say it is August. This is July 28th of 2023. So you put the date there. You're going to want to put the start time, which we're going to pretend is 7 o'clock p.m. And you want to leave the end time blank until the end of the match. And you're going to let the scorekeeper sign their name here at the end of the match. So please don't write anything there either. So that's how you fill out the first page, or the first before the game has started. There's a few other things you can fill out. So the teams will hand you their lineup sheet, and their lineup will have these 6 spots in order, and they will have players listed for each of them. So whichever player they have listed beside this Roman numeral 1 is going to be their first server. So in my case, I'm going to make it easy and make this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you always want to put it in this top box so that you have room for all of the subs in the next couple boxes. So these are just the players' jersey numbers. And you also want to indicate who their team captain is. That will also be stated on their lineup sheet. So in my case, I'm going to say that my team captain is player number 2. So now that I've filled out this side, I'm going to want to fill out what the team name is. So this is Blue Ridge. And we're going to pretend like Blue Ridge is playing, I don't know, Spotswood. Spotswood's player numbers, again, could just be 1 through 6, whatever their player numbers are. I'm going to start 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. In this case, player 15 is their team captain. You can have overlapping numbers. I just did that for simplicity's sake so that it would be easier to keep track of the players. So this, like I said, is their service order. So on Blue Ridge's side, number 1 is going to be their first server. And then on Spotswood's side, number 11 is going to be their first server. You also want to indicate which set number this is. So this is set number 1 because we haven't started yet, set number 1. And then the other thing that you should indicate is who has the first serve. So I know it's small, but this first serve box, you're going to want to check on whichever side has the first serve. So let's pretend like Spotswood is serving first. I'm going to check that box there. Again, it's easier to see in person. I know it's kind of faint on this video. So we're going to check that for the first serve. And then the other thing that we should indicate is who their libero is. So in Blue Ridge's case, we're going to pretend like our libero is number 7. So I'm going to put a 7 in this libero box. And for Spotswood, we're going to say, for simplicity's sake, we're going to say 17 is their libero. In high school, you can only have 1 libero per set, so this is not a problem. You can just put whatever their number is in that box. So again, we've indicated the first serve is going to be Spotswood, so Spotswood is the first person serving. So now that we are getting ready to start the game, there's a few things you want to keep track of at all times. First thing that you want to keep track of at all times is the correct person serving. So Spotswood is the first server, so that means number 11 should be our first server of the entire game. So number 11 goes back with the ball, and they're prepared to serve. After they serve, it's a little bit weird for the first point of the match because usually you write the point in the box. But in this case, we're waiting to see what happens. So if number 11 serves the first point and they get the first point, then they're going to be awarded a 1 right here because number 11 is about to serve on point number 1. And they have been awarded this point, so we want to make sure that we scratch that point off. So you always want to check to make sure that your scoreboard matches exactly what's listed on your scorebook. And if your scoreboard is wrong, you need to tell the scorebook that the scoreboard and they need to fix it. So now that we know Spotswood got the first point, so they have a 1 here. And then we're pretending like 11 is still going to serve, right? So 11 is going to serve until they lose a point. So 11 serves again, and they got another point. So Spotswood now, we're going to cross off the 2, and then we're going to put a 2 here. So now they're serving point number 2. Okay, so the 2 things that you need to make sure that you do in between every single point are to make sure that you have the correct server serving, and you need to write down which point they're serving for. And then you also need to cross off which point that is, just to keep track of all of that. So now that Spotswood has served on point number 2, but they actually just lost the serve. They lost the next point. So we're going to put a dash there after the 2. And then we're going to come over here to Blue Ridge, and Blue Ridge was awarded 1 point. So now we want to make sure that they have rotated, because now there was a side out. So now their first player, the first person to be serving should be player number 1. So we want to make sure that we put a 1 here, because they're serving on point number 1. So now we've had 3 points go by in the game. Spotswood's earned 2 points, and Blue Ridge has earned 1 point. Blue Ridge now serves again, and they served their second point, and they won the next point. So now they have 2 points. And again, we're making sure that the correct person is serving. So it still should be player number 1 serving, because they haven't rotated. So everything is okay right now. Everybody's good. But then Blue Ridge decides that they want to sub out player number 4. So the ref standing in front of the table, also called the R2 or the down ref, is going to tell the people at the scorebook that there is a sub. They're going to indicate the sub and tell you that number 18 is going in for number 4. So what you're going to do is cross out the 4, and then right beside it, you're going to write down the number of the player that just came onto the court. Okay, so now we have number 18 playing in number 4's spot. And then we also want to indicate that there was 1 sub on this side. You're only allowed to have 18 subs in a varsity match, and I believe a JV, and then I think middle school is 12. So you definitely want to make sure you're keeping track of how many subs have happened, and you can do that by looking down at the bottom. And a libero switch does not count as a sub. You do not need to keep track of the libero, of where the libero is playing on your scorebook. So if we pretend like number 7, who is our libero, goes in for number 3, you don't need to indicate that unless they end up serving for that player. So I'll get to that in a minute, but we don't need to worry about that for now. So Blue Ridge has served their second point, and we're going to pretend like they won the next point as well. So they now have 3 points, and player 1 is still serving. They are up to 3. Okay, so again, you scratch off the point number that it is, and then you write which point number it is at the server, so you can keep track of who served that point. Okay, so now we're going to pretend like number 1 missed their serve. So I'm going to put a dash there, and then I'm going to award the point to Spotswood's side. So now they have 3 points, and they should be rotating now. So number 12 should be their next server, and they should be serving on point number 3. So I want to write that down in the box on the same row as the 12. Okay, so 12 is now serving. We play out the point, and they win the point. So I'm going to award them the point by crossing out the 4 and then writing a 4 here. That's going to be the next serve. So in between, instead of having sub, they've decided to have their libero come in for number 12, which again, you don't need to indicate unless the libero is about to serve. So because the libero is coming in for our service position currently, number 17 is going in for 12. You don't need to indicate that the libero is playing, but you do need to indicate with a triangle that the libero is serving in that spot. So now you put a triangle around the position number. And the reason that we do that is because the libero is allowed to play for whoever they want as long as they're in the back row, but they're only allowed to serve for 1 position in their rotation. So now that the libero has served for number 12 in this number 2 position, they cannot serve for anybody else, even if they go in for somebody else. So now the libero is serving. We've indicated everything that we need to. They got the next point, so we're going to give them a 5 and cross that off. And then you essentially just keep playing that way. So anytime you lose a serve, you want to put a dash at the end and make sure that you award the point to the other team, and then write down the player that should be serving now. Write down the point that the player is serving. So again, you always want to make sure that the correct person is serving. That is one of your biggest jobs as a scorebook keeper. You always want to make sure that your score is correct and matches the one on the board, whether you're the one doing the board or not. You want to keep track of subs and making sure that all the subs are legal. So again, let's come back to Blue Ridge side. Let's say that they want to sub out number 18. They have two options. There are only 3 people allowed to play in each position. So they could sub out number 18 for number 9 if they want to. So now number 9 is in number 4's original spot and number 18's spot. So now either number 4 or number 18 could go back in for 9. It doesn't matter, but those are the only 3 players who are now allowed to play in this spot. Okay, so then as the game continues, if that coach tries to sub in player number, let's say player number 12 on this team in for this position, the scorebook is going to tell the ref, hey, they're not allowed to sub in for that person. That's an illegal sub. And then the ref is going to deal with that accordingly. But as long as they keep the correct people in their spot, it should be no problem. But again, you can have up to 3 people in one position, but it cannot be somebody who is already off the court. So if we pretend like number 6 subbed out for number 14, we'll say, number 14 goes in for number 6. Now, number 6, even if they're off the court, cannot go in for number 5, even if they're off the court, because number 6 has already played in this position. So number 6 needs to stay in their own box, essentially. They need to stay in their own row. So that's what an illegal sub would be. So you need to keep track of that and make sure that that is all happening. And again, every time there's a sub, you need to cross off. So we had 1, 2, 3, 4 subs. I'm actually just 3 because one of them is illegal. So I'm not going to actually write that one down. But they've had 3 subs. And again, this one is illegal. So you would need to tell the ref about that because they started in this spot. So now we're back to looking at the entire scorebook as a whole. And again, you keep playing each point out. This is how you would record it. And there's a few other things that you should know. So anytime a team calls a timeout, let's pretend like Blue Ridge called a timeout right in this moment. So it is now 4-5. Blue Ridge has 4 and Spotswood has 5. So I want to indicate that this is their first timeout and the score is 4-5. You want to make sure that you put it in this first box because each team is awarded 2 timeouts. So you definitely don't want to write it that it is 4 in one box and 5 in the other box because that looks like you've already used both of their timeouts. So each team gets 2 timeouts per set. So this is where you're going to record that. And then since Blue Ridge was the one who called the timeout, Spotswood doesn't need to record a timeout for that listing unless they are the ones who called the timeout. So you don't need to record anything in their box. So as the game goes on, you keep playing until a team gets to 25 points, obviously. Once a team has 25, you should have marked all of these, pretend like I'm doing it accurately, to 25. And then we'll say like Spotswood only ever got to 15. Okay, so then at the end, you're going to turn this into a little hourglass. You're going to turn it into an X with little lines on the end. Same thing for this side. And the final score here is 15. Final score here is 25. Again, the little hourglass on the side. So another thing that you should know is that once you get all the way through the rotation, so we'll say that they served on Spotswood's side, they served point number 6, then they lost a serve, then they served point number 7, then lost a serve, then point number 8 and 9, and then they lost the serve, and then 10, 11, 12. So again, you keep going, but then now they should be back to their first server. Whether or not there has been a sub, it should still be whoever is in the top position. So their first server, we're going to say again, is number 11 because that's who we haven't had a sub for them. So we're going to come back up here after we've had the dash. Then you can record that they're serving point number 13. And then we can pretend like they served 14 and 15. And then that was all for them. And that was all the points that they scored. So what this indicates is how many points this team scored on this player's service. So while number 11 is serving, they were able to get 2 points in a row and then 3 points in a row. So that's really helpful for coaches to know. And that's one of the reasons that we keep the scorebook. So those are the biggest things that you need to do each set. And then at the end of the set, you should indicate who won. So you can do that by circling the W or the L. So on this side, we said Blue Ridge got 25. So they won. And then over here, we said that Spotswood lost. So we're going to put an L there. At the end of each set, you should have the referee initial the box. So the box is here. We're going to say their initials are CB because that's my initials. And CB. So I know this is a lot of information. So if you have any questions, please let me know. But this is the general idea of how to keep a scorebook. A couple things that I forgot to add to the end of my first recording is that when the game is over, you also need to make sure that you put the end time. So we'll pretend like this game went the entire match. And we only actually filled out this first set. So you would play another set here and then another set here at least if it's a varsity match. But we're pretending like the entire game ended at 9:30. So I'm going to put 9:30 in my end time here. And then your official scorekeeper is going to sign their name. So I'll sign my name. Okay, so now that that has happened at the end of the game, that's important. And then to jump back a little bit at the start of a set, if we talked about how if the server gets the point, then it's easy because you just put the 1 there after because they're serving on point number 1. But let's say that the first player did not get the point. So we're saying that player number 11, I'm just using this box because it's blank. Number 11 is the person serving right now, and they did not get the first point of the match. So you're just going to start with the dash right here. Oops, that was ugly. You're going to start with the dash right here, and then you'll come over to this side where player number 1 is now the first server, and they're still serving point number 1. So the only difference is that they were serving on point 0, so you don't need to write a 0 in this box here. This box here, you don't need to put a 0 because they haven't actually scored any points yet. So you would just write this dash after they do not get the point. A couple dash after they do not get the point. Here, and then another set here at least.